have another amazing expert with us today. We have Ally Muntean. And so Ally, she's joining us. She does a lot on YouTube with her horse training and giving out a lot of tutorials, helping people with just common problems you might see with horses and just behavioral tips as well. So Ally, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's an honor. It'll be fun.
Yeah, so what we're doing, we're just talking about keeping the animal first and the sport second. And I know that's super important for you, and people might have seen you, especially in your YouTube videos with training. And do you mind going a little bit into detail of what you're doing with your YouTube videos?
Oh, okay. So my YouTube site is Lone Star Woman 80. And basically it just kind of started as keeping track of, it's more of a training blog, keeping track of what I'm doing with all my different clients and with my different horses. And I've seen so much change happen really in the last 10 years in the horse industry, and especially in Texas. And a lot more people want to get involved in it, but they don't really understand horses. They don't understand how they think. People seem to have this Disney view of horses where you just magically jump up on this horse and you ride off into the sunset and the horse does exactly what you want every time you want. Right. And it's all just perfect. That's not reality. Reality is so far away from that. And especially when you're just beginning, there's this whole huge all this stuff you need to learn. And then all of a sudden you think you've done it for about a year, and you think, oh, I really know everything, and everything's going along pretty good. And then you start to look and talk to other people, and then you realize, oh my gosh, I don't know anything. And it kind of goes all down, and then you have to start relearning, and you're like, okay, well, maybe I'm not even qualified to do this sort of stuff, and oh, my horse just did this, and oh, I don't understand this. And there's so much of a huge learning curve with horses and owning horses, riding the horses, let alone getting into competing. Back in the 80s and the 90s in Texas, there were some horrific abuses, especially in the rodeo industry. I mean, I personally saw rodeo cowboys leave their horses in their trailers overnight, tacked up with no food, no water, while they went to the bar and, did stuff like that. And that was the rodeo circuit for a long time back in the 80s and 90s. And it was bad. Wow. It was bad. And people not thinking about their horses and not thinking about their animals, but just thinking about competing and, not really realizing that their partner, their rodeo partner, is a living creature that really needs food and water and should probably have its saddle taken off at some point.
Right.
So nowadays, people are really thinking a whole lot differently about competing with their horses.
Yeah. Oh,
and,
yeah. Gosh.
I'm going to shed a little light on that.
Yeah.
That was 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's amazing. There is change in the industry, and people are taking a whole lot better care of their animals, but wow, it's come a long way.
It is amazing, what people maybe don't know. So that's why it's good for us as, we are part of this group, just trying to share and give an education to the other people, like at your barns, of what you can do to be a good role model for people who maybe just don't know. And just for the horse and also dogs, a lot of dog people are watching this as well, just being a good role model for other people who just maybe grew up in that environment and that's just part of life, and we can just help the animal by just educating the public on it too. So that's why, Ally, I'm so glad you're here today to help explain a little bit on some, you touch a lot about just getting a better bond with the horses. And you were just mentioning too, just learning, it's a learning curve, and you feel like sometimes gosh, do I really know what I'm doing? You always run into a horse or a dog, I've never experienced this before, and then someone else has the answer, and you're like, gosh, I just feel like I don't know. that's actually a
I
good
run into
thing,
situations
where you,
all the time. I mean, I've been doing this for 35 years,
and it's
and
good though, because you're
I've
open, to like,
I've been
hey, I
around
don't know
thousands of
everything.
horses, and it's really amazing, and thousands of people, and I still meet new people and still see horses with new challenges all the time. Here's the big deal. I think is the biggest takeaway from this. Every person is an individual, every horse is an individual, and every animal that you're dealing with is an individual personality. And I don't think we give them credit for that. I think we just say, oh, all horses are like this, all dogs are like this. Oh, cats, they don't give you the time of day. They don't care. You have to treat your animals as individuals and realize they have personalities. I mean, and sometimes you don't like them very much. Sometimes they're little brats and they do things. I had my horses. I had one of my horses yesterday get loose and knock over part of my feed barn and put his head in there, push over the chicken food, and get into the chicken food. I didn't like him very much at that particular moment. He made a mess. They're mischievous. They do stuff that, they're just like kids. Right. They have personalities, and they have to be treated as individuals. Right. And especially when you have to develop the bond with that animal, all of your emotions, all of your body, everything about you has to connect directly to that horse in order for you to accomplish the goals that you want and for the horse to enjoy themselves. Jumping over things, that's a natural behavior, but we make it into a new horse. So we are having an animal do something that we want them to do.
Yeah, right. I mean, so we're asking them quite a bit, like a sport, anything that we're asking that's not necessarily natural in that like environment, things like that.
Right.
So it has to be a relationship. It's like a give-take. Why would they want to do that for you? It's, it's amazing how they do want to bond with you, and we should give them respect. And you'll get much farther when you give and take.
You have to give respect in order to get respect in return. But there's also this whole thing is they're a 1,000-pound animal. They have moods too, and they can have bad moods, and they can have good moods, and a lot of times it's really hard to determine whether you're having a bad ride, your horse is acting out because it's in some kind of pain throughout its body, or is my horse acting out because that's its personality and she doesn't want to work today, and she has figured out if she pitches a little fit, whoever is on her will get off and, let her alone.
Right.
So really, the big thing is trying to determine whether a bad behavior is personality or is it pain, and a lot of times they can't tell you. They really can't tell you if it hurts. But they can show you if it hurts. And I'm learning a whole lot more about evaluating pain in horses than I ever really did, especially from looking at horse recce. I'd never even heard of it.
Yeah,
and then I was like, oh, wow, horse acupuncture. I've always agreed with chiropractic, and I've always known about chiropractic massage. And I'm like, oh, that's cool, but there's so many different other ways to really help horses get in balance, especially if you're experiencing a problem with your horse that's a pretty chronic problem.
Yeah.
Not just one day they're going to be a little off, but there's, their whole body is just like our whole body.
It's chronic, yeah. Yeah, and so you were just mentioning too, just like they can show you pain, and one way is just routine. If it's okay, if you see them on a routine basis, you'll know if it's like a Monday vibe versus if it's just that day they're just acting up, or if it's all the time. Just knowing the personality of your horse and then working with them, and their age makes a difference too. Because if they're younger, they're gonna act like even more younger, like kids. And so, I mean, that all things are relative in this sense, like you're saying too. So I think that's a good point to mention. Like, gosh, it could be chronic pain, but you can find out with different therapies if they are reacting in a negative way, or they are showing like they're not comfortable doing what you're asking them to do, or are they just, like giving you the bird, like, I just don't want to do it. So you can find out, make it a better environment for them. Oh, yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry.
That's what they do.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and I talk to people all the time about, learning how your horse works. And I think the biggest problem for everybody, and I think so many people are guilty about it, and so many people get hurt, their horses get hurt, because they don't properly warm their horses up before they get in the saddle. They don't do any groundwork. It's just the whole warm-up procedure. And especially if you're dealing with athletes, and horses are athletes, but you're an athlete too. And think about it, when you're training athletes, what do? You warm up, you stretch out, before you start rigorously engaging in any kind of physical activity, right? Horses need to warm up, stretch out, get ready to do some physical activity.
Yeah, a lot of exterior elements that can affect your ride. And you might have an okay ride, but imagine if you did warm up. Like how much different it would be if you did warm up and you did stretch. I think that would be just a good tip in that sense. And
that would be my number one tip, is to do, it doesn't take a long time. I mean, within an hour, you can work, 5 to 10 minutes to get your horse tacked up. Then you can spend 10 to 15 minutes, maybe not even that much. I mean, I do basically the same groundwork routine every time, which utilizes all the stretching. You are able to move your horse's head, neck, shoulder, rib cage, and hindquarters in both directions, have complete control. You can also see if your horse is having any problems at that point.
Right.
And, horses out in the pasture, they kick the heck out of each other. I'm learning that.
They do, yeah.
They don't always get along. They're not all happy all the time. And so you may not know that your horse got kicked by this other person's horse, or vice versa, or whatever. You don't know until you actually get out there and you see them going around a circle on a lunge line or a round pen, or however you warm them up. Right. But that would be my biggest thing, is don't hold back your horse. Don't just get on and ride, warm them up, get them ready, get yourself ready too.
Right.
And you're going to have a much safer ride. Your horse is going to enjoy it, and you're going to have a more productive ride because you've already warmed up those muscles. You've already started your stretching, and now you can build upon that no matter what level you are, whether you're a beginner and,
right.
This is why professionals are professionals. This is what they do all the time.
Like you're saying, like just warming them up and going into routine, you can see from day to day, like, oh, well, normally they bend a little bit more than today. So you know what their normal is and what is like aloof or something that's a little off. And then you can focus on that and see maybe there's inflammation, there's anything like that. Or just in general, maybe it's just training process. Like, oh, okay, well, they're stronger on their left side versus their right. So you know where to train a little bit more so you can even out the animal. So just routine warming up, like you said, is great. Just figuring out, like, turning their head, their shoulders, their rib cage, and their hindquarters. That's great. So you can really reach all the parts. Just to see where there could be some changes through your routine, and then moving forward from there. So that's a great tip. I mean, for anybody who's working with animals too.
So, knowledge is power. The more you know, the more you can grow, and the more you realize you don't know. So treat your horses as individuals and understand that you have your own limitations. And sometimes you shouldn't feel bad that maybe you can't afford to buy $150 a month supplement and look at the ingredients and go, oh, that's the primary ingredient right there. Maybe I can just try giving this, and, if it doesn't work I don't think people should beat themselves up by finding their own skills.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that too. It's just doing the best you can, and just talk to a vet to see if you can't afford that specific supplement. Just say, hey, like if I can't get this, what's the main idea of this? Like, what's the main active ingredient that I need to,
Right.
So to break it down.
There's a lot of products that are on the market that when we start really breaking down products and marketing, that really the main ingredient is active ingredient. Everything is fluff. And I'm not, like you said, it's that whole, you have to understand how things are marketed. And you know what? If you want to just go ahead and know this is a good product and it has everything you need and, that's going to work for you, go for it. I'm all for that. But also, because the FDA doesn't really regulate supplementation, we have to look at, how much the active ingredient is. And we have to make decisions on our own. What's going to be best for our horses? Because we want good nutrition. And let's just face it, we all don't have a 100-acre ranch where our horses can eat grass and have a great life and, don't have to have that. Majority of people keep their horses at boarding stables. The equine community is basically people keeping their horses at boarding stables. Very few people, except here in Texas, we have a lot more, that actually keep their horses at home and that have their own facilities. But, if you're going to have to knock your horse on pasture all the time, you are going to have to be doing a supplement if they're living in a stall or a smaller environment than what they would, and you have a farm where they can run all they wanted.
Yeah, so worldwide, there's different ways people have their horses, but you're right, a lot of people do board, and it just depends where you live. Like you said, Texas, there's a lot of options doing it that way. But like you mentioned too, just finding the active ingredients, but just talking to multiple vets, if, just getting a different perspective. That's never a bad thing, getting multiple ideas from different people. And absolutely, just different supplements, and if you can, like mineral blocks from the inside out. Right. It's like you were saying too. Just if they're not in the environment where those supplements are readily available, you have to consider what they're missing and putting it into their diet to get the best they can, as if they're missing.
Well, another kind of related topic to that, and something that I want to address also, in the equine industry, you're not going to have a show in your backyard. You're going to have to haul your horse. It's a stressful thing for the horses to go through, to do all this hauling and shipping. And especially in Texas, nothing's close.
Yeah.
Everything is at least an hour.
Yeah.
We have a lot of concerns here with the heat. And so I think we need to have this whole conversation about like hauling our horses and hauling our horses safely, and what are some strategies to alleviate some of that stress on our athletes, because we don't really know what's going on back there in the trailer. I've been trying to get together with I talked to people about putting a baby monitor actually in my horse trailer, so as I'm driving I can sit there. Probably a bad idea to look down at the horse, but especially in the heat, one of the things that I do that a lot of people they kind of look at me and go, what? Before I load them up in the horse trailer, give them a bath. Because especially with stock trailers that have slats on the side, you have the motion, the movement of, it's like driving with the window down. If you're already kind of cool, it's like, oh, this isn't so bad. But but when you have enclosed horse trailers, you walk in there and you start sweating.
Yeah.
You're going to stick your horse in there for 3 hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not have any air circulation. You got to kind of think about these things.
Right.
And you also prepare your horse for travel. You can't just expect your horse to load when you haven't been practicing it and you haven't done it in months. It's been 6 months, and all of a sudden you have to get ready in 5 minutes, and you want your horse to just magically hop in the trailer and everything good.
Patience.
Yeah, there's a lot more trailer safety involved than I think a lot of people really think about.
Right, absolutely. Like you were saying, just maybe because it's hot in there, it's like an oven. It can be, especially in parts of Texas where it's very warm. Just considering the time of day you're leaving, like really early, it's cooler. That's a great idea with getting them a little wet, damp, and so that the air circulation helps as well. And just being patient too, like you said, like you can't always expect them to just load up, and then you're pressured and you're getting in. That's just hurting the relationship with you and your horse when you need to have a little patience with them and ask them to go in and just keep that in your schedule. I think that's a great tip too.
Another thing is when you also have to deal with your emotions when you're traveling, you're going to take your horse, you're going to compete. Think about your level of stress as well. Because your level of stress is actually going to show up on your horse. Because horses, that's why women really like horses. Women really like horses because they are so empathetic. They can feel what we feel. And when we're stressed out, guess what? It stresses them out. They're like, oh, mama's stressed out. What am I going to do? And with horses, I did a video on this the other day, and I read this really great book called Zen Mind, Zen Horse, and it just got me thinking about this whole emotional connection that some of the really great horsemen that just seem kind of boring. They're just very, they're just easy. Look at Buck Brenneman. I mean, he's the most easygoing guy, and that's what he talks about. It's like, you actually have to be neutral around your horse, and have that emotional neutrality where you're not getting overly excited, which, it's kind of my part. I have a hard time. I get excited and, want to have fun, that sort of thing. And that's great. But, it's kind of keeping everything nice and calm, keeping yourself, being able to sit behind the wheel before you go. Take a nice deep breath, take 10 deep breaths, find your center, find your balance, because you being balanced is going to help your horse be more balanced and less stressed out too.
Yeah.
So a lot of times we have to look at ourselves, and that's not too easy sometimes.
Absolutely. Like you just said, they can respond. They really pick up your emotions. If you're tense or if you're relaxed, and like you said, Buck Brenneman, he's pretty relaxed guy. He's neutral, like you were saying. It's really interesting to watch and how he reacts with animals, and not being too energetic or not to any direction, and just that helps them.
Yeah, and that's really hard to do, kind of being neutral. And, it's a different way to think. Horses live in the now. Horses aren't worried about what happened earlier, with this, or what's going to happen tomorrow with this, or, whether you got to pay bills, or, what are you worried about?
Any of that.
All your worries and all of those things that are going on in your head, those are all external stressors. And when you get with your horse, you can let those go. And you actually benefit your horse by letting all of that stuff go and just focus all your attention on your intent with your horse.
Mm-hmm.
And be there and be present. Don't be thinking about your social media posts, all this other stuff. Be there and be with your horse in that moment. And it's amazing the difference it makes.
Yeah, just being in the present moment. That's a great tip too. They focus on the time you're with them. They don't think about the past, and they aren't thinking about the future going into, when's dinner time and all that. Like they're reacting and living in the moment. So that itself is a wonderful tip. And so, Ally, we try to keep these right around 30 minutes. So
Okay.
I really appreciate your time. We got some really good tips. And what we're going to do, we're going to have a link for Ally so you can see some of her videos next to her, the video we have here. And if you have questions, feel free to shoot them our way, and we're happy to help. All right. Thank you so much, Ally. We'll be talking soon.
Oh, thank you so much. It was a great interview. I so enjoyed it.
Me too. Thank you. Bye-bye.